Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. I am bringing you a very fun and spicy topic today. We are going to talk about all things effective communication. And we are specifically going to do this in the context of a relationship. So whether you're a first responder or you're married to one, dating one, or you just need help in your relationship with communication, this is going to be super helpful for you today. We're going to talk about what happens when conflict arises, things like criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling, as well as what are the tactics to do the work in the here and now to help build a stronger communication style and a stronger relationship. So sit back, enjoy, grab your special person, and let's dive into this super fun conversation on how to effectively communicate. Okay, so I asked around to several different first responders, people that I know, and asked them to give me some feedback on what has been the biggest challenge being a first responder in a relationship. And I thought it was very interesting, some of the feedback that I got, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So, one of the firefighters, this has been a firefighter for over 15 years now, said that the biggest challenge is communication and having to show up for your partner or family. Be present in the moment when you're dealing with either the traumas of calls or sleep deprivation. A lot of things that bother or stress the everyday person seem so pointless or minor, and it's hard to be empathetic towards their problems. Another firefighter said, I think the biggest challenge for me has been communication. I've had a difficult time explaining what's going on in my head to my wife, and I tend to push everything down. I wish I'd known years ago how to cope better. I used to drown emotions in alcohol, and now I don't drink, and I treat my body with care and respect. Another sheriff deputy said that the biggest challenge has been the traumas and the extreme highs and lows that have totally changed me. It's like a fog of depression when you've just been through days of tough stuff. Having to bounce back immediately is challenging. I wish I would have known that I'm safer at work than when I am at home. The real damages from the job are not just when I have a gun on my belt, but when I'm home and struggling. And a disabled Army vet, this was his feedback he gave me, was trust and good communication are both challenges. Seems to be the secret sauce for a lasting and fulfilling relationship. If trust is lost and can't be gradually built, your relationship is on life support and is likely to be fraught with poor communication. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I got was from the spouse of a firefighter who said, I wasn't prepared to be married to a volcano. And this one hit me pretty hard when I received this feedback. And I thought to myself, like, man, there is a lot to this, and I can definitely see how being the spouse of a first responder or a military personnel is extremely difficult, and there is a big disconnect between wanting to know what's going on in the mind of your first responder, but also as a first responder, a shield of protection or hesitancy around sharing. And honestly, like, the more that I look into it and see it, I think there's a real hesitancy to wanting to feel the things that we're actually feeling, and that makes us feel so closed off or hesitant to communicate or share Not necessarily calls or what's happened on the job, but just in general, it gives us that shut down kind of feeling. And that can cause a ton of conflict. If one partner is feeling isolated or shut out from the other and they don't know what's going on, that causes a real disconnect within the context of the relationship. So if we think about managing conflict instead of resolving conflict, one of the things that comes up a lot, I think, that I hear from couples that I work with is like they don't like conflict. And traditionally, like most of us don't really like conflict, I would say, in general. And maybe out of what you've seen in the past or past relationships, experiences that you've had, like conflict wasn't necessarily a good thing. And we need to look at this with a different lens and start to explore the idea around how conflict can actually be okay. And that all relationships, even the most successful relationships, are going to have conflict. And it can range from so many different things, from dirty laundry to the kids to not having enough sex to spending too much money. But conflict is incredibly normal. Relationship conflict is natural and it 100% holds a function for us. We just have to be willing to accept these opportunities for growth and understanding. And what I have really grasped onto, and it's been kind of coming up over and over and over again in a lot of stuff, is that our partners are there to help us see the things within ourselves that maybe need some light or some focusing on. And so it goes back to the classic phrase, if you spot it, you got it, right? And so our partners, that's such the cool aspect of the relationship, is our partners are there to help be those activators, to see those things within ourselves that need some kind of focus or work on. And if you look at that as what the context, the core of the relationship is, or the goal of it is to help each other grow and expand and to live our most abundant, healthy lives possible, we can totally be okay with the conflict. And the conflict being uncomfortable is not a bad thing. Being uncomfortable is what we need to grow and to learn and to do what we need to do. One of the other big aspects of this idea around managing conflict rather than trying to resolve everything, and I know you are not going to like this as a first responder, maybe just anybody in general, but when we can't fix everything, we really don't like that. And that's where this idea of being okay with conflict and not always coming to the immediate resolution within a conflict is okay. And this is a struggle for a lot of us, right? Especially those who are the verbal processors, or maybe who are working with to transform that anxious attachment style. Is leaving unresolved conflict out there can be really dysregulating and really uncomfortable in the relationship. But if we can turn the light around and look inward, we can see how this is an area of growth for myself. If something is coming up in me, it's showing me, okay, focus on this, or this is something that's activating or triggering you. And walking away from the conversation, not in complete disarray and chaos, but if we didn't fix everything in that moment, it doesn't mean that the relationship is totally doomed or is not going to work or we can't grow through the conflict, but just being okay that the conflict is there. The other thing I think in the first step, what we need to do is look for and counteract what John and Julie Gottman, if you don't know who they are, very famous couples therapists, they have come up with a concept called the 4 Horsemen. And looking for these showing up within your communication style and or your conflict style is really, really important. And it comes back to Newton's third law of every action has an equal opposite reaction, right? And so not identifying and counteracting these 4 things, which we're going to talk about, is what the Gottmans refer to as the apocalypse, or the, oh crap, this is not good for the relationship. And more often than not, we can find where these types of communication are actually showing up outside of just the intimate or the one-on-one, the marriage or the relationship. But you can see these show up like throughout the workplace or in areas other than that reflect the same pattern. So usually it's more than just in the context of the relationship, but because the relationships are usually where we feel so psychologically safe, usually, that can be where we'll see it heaviest in action. So if you don't identify and learn how to counteract these, what we're going to talk about, the 4 horsemen, you're risking serious problems and these trends within your relationships. And if any of you are parents, you are models to your kids, and so they're going to watch and see how you communicate within your relationship, and they are definitely going to mimic that or adopt that communication style within their own relationships or moving forward in the relationships that are yet to come. So I always like to bring it back to the work isn't just about for us. It's not just for your partner, which is great, but it's also more than that. It's about those people who you're impacting in your home, and that pattern will continue to perpetuate unless you make a choice to choose differently. So when conflict does arise, the 4 things, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are going to look like this. We're going to break down and talk about each one of these, but we have criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So when we talk about criticism, I like to define this as a complaint that focuses on some kind of specific behavior, or criticism attacks a person's character or personality. So let me give you some examples of this. You always talk about yourself. Why are you so selfish? You always leave the dishes for me to do. You never listen to what I'm saying. You're just like your mother, always nagging. It's all your fault that we're late. If you didn't spend so much money, I wouldn't have to work overtime. You only did that because you want something from me. Why can't you be more like my ex? Any of these sound like conversations that you've had, or either received that comment or given that comment to someone else? So I'm going to give you a very important tool, or maybe I don't even like to call it a secret, but I'm going to give you a very important piece of information here. If you don't get anything else from this podcast and you only let this one thing sink in, then we've won, and I'm excited. But the worst word that you can ever use, let me repeat that again. The worst word you can ever use is you. Anytime that you use the word you, it is going to automatically trigger people into the defensive state. So if you think about even just driving down the road, this literally happened to me today. I was trying to get over into another lane and nobody was letting me over. So I literally just slow rolling it in the left lane with my blinker on to try to get over. I can definitely relate to throwing out the word of you, blah, 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 fill in the blank. That automatically puts me on the defensive. And if a person in the car who was driving that wouldn't let me over, if they heard maybe what I was saying, they would also be on the defensive. And so anytime you throw out that word you, it is going to be negative for you in the context of the conversation. You always talk about yourself. You never, you're just like your mother. It's all your fault. If you didn't spend, it's very personal. And I guarantee you it is going to cause conflict. So in the effort of combating this criticism, you're probably asking them, what do we do? What's the antidote? And we have to go in with a gentle startup. And this is owning it and using these I statements to express how I'm feeling and what do I need from my partner. This is something I work on a lot with couples, but also individuals who come in and we're working specifically on how to improve communication, or like we're having a big disconnect in terms of how am I feeling and how am I communicating that. And there is a lot of grace here too, right? Especially as we start to learn and experience these emotions and feelings that are coming up that we've probably shoved down and closed off for a long time. It can be a little clunky and it can be a little messy as we're trying to figure it out. And so we've got to give each other grace and ourselves grace while we're trying to figure out this whole thing of how do we do this emotion thing. So when we use that I feel, it's automatically going to lead into the I need type category. And this is really cool because it gives our partners an opportunity to actually show up for us, which is really what most of them want to do. So let me give you an example of this. Let's say you come home from shift and there is a ton of dishes in the sink. And you probably maybe guess like dishes haven't been done for 48 hours or 12 hours, whatever your shifts are. There's a lot of dishes in the sink. And I'm using this as a personal like activator trigger for me because something about the dishes just drives me crazy. But I have choices in terms of how I can take this and how I can handle this with my husband. I can say, you're pretty super lazy. Like you couldn't do the dishes for 48 hours, or you didn't think about like just cleaning up before I got home, or what the dishes actually mean to me. Like I can go 100% into the criticism, attacking that behavior or his character, right? Or I can slow down, which is often a very good idea within the context of conflict, is to slow down and not just automatically speak right away. But if I slow down and I reflect internally in how I'm feeling, then it becomes a little bit more clear. So am I tired? Am I overwhelmed? Am I hungry? Which is usually when I'm on that short fuse. What am I actually feeling? So then I can communicate it very clearly and concisely to him of what I need. So it could look like this. I'm feeling tired and overwhelmed from my shift. Can you please help me out by doing the dishes tonight? Or not even use it even to make it better than what I just said. Cut out the word you, right? It would really help me out if you could do the dishes tonight. Something like that. That, for one, like we said, causes us to go internally and look at how we're actually feeling. But then two, gives our partners an opportunity to show up for us. And instead of being so vague of, can you help out or can you do something? Like, they don't know what that means. Like, it's too vanilla. We're not sure. Like, be clear and concise. You're not going to hurt their feelings if you're clear and concise. Being vague is going to cause you more problems because they don't know how you're feeling, number one, and they don't know what you actually need. And you may not even know what you need. But again, turn it inward, go internal, and take out any blame or criticism from that. Now, contempt. This is going to show up in statements that come from a position of this moral superiority type stance. And contempt is actually the greatest predictor of divorce. And let me give you some examples of this and see if any of this resonates for you. Sarcasm, cynicism, name-calling, eye-rolling, sneering, mockery, hostile humor. So For example, oh, look who decided to finally do the dishes. Funny enough that we come back to the dishes. Sure, because your way is clearly the only right way to do things. Why bother trying to change anything? It's not like we'll ever be different. You're such an idiot sometimes. Stop being so dramatic. Oh, we're still on this topic? Oh, look at me. I'm so perfect at everything. Here comes Mr. Helpful, just in time not to help at all. Ooh, those are a lot of really uncomfortable, but I know, like, if you're being honest with yourself, you can probably find some places where you've thrown out some of those things. Now, what's the antidote to this contempt? We got to focus on building a culture of appreciation and respect. So this looks like, I understand that you've been busy lately, but could you please fill in the blank? I'd really appreciate it. I understand that you were busy with the kids while I was on shift, but could you please give me an hour to rest? I'd appreciate it. Whatever it is, both ways, right? First responder and whoever's at home taking care of the ship while we're gone for that extended period of time. And the really awesome thing with this is that a little bit is going to go a very long way. So things like appreciation, gratitude, affection, respect, those are high payoffs for you in the long run. And the more positive that you feel, the less likely you'll feel or express contempt. So this one really takes a lot of personal ownership in how you're talking to yourself, how you feel about yourself, because you're going to project that onto the other people. So I like to not put the expectation on that you're never going to say anything that's negative, but always make sure that your positives are outweighing your negatives. And little things like laughing, making jokes with each other, teasing each other, these signs of affection, all that kind of stuff is going to add so much into that bank, for lack of a better word, of having that really good positive feeling between you guys, that when you are human and you do mess up and you do throw out sarcasm, especially because we know we use a lot of these things within the workplace too, is just kind of common communication and style, is you'll have a little bit more of grace extended your way if you've been putting in more positive. So do that. It's awesome. And one thing, again, like that, this is taking from what the Gottmans teach a lot of, is they call it recognizing bids for connection. So these bids for connection is our ability to respond and recognize what our partner is doing. So for example, they talk about turning toward one another. And that's where, let's say I have something cool to share with my husband, or he has something cool to share with me. We'll think of that as the context of this example. Turning toward each other would be that open curiosity of like, hey, like, is this, this is something I want to share with you. Oh yeah, what's that about? I want to check that out. Or hey honey, is something the matter? You sound tired. Is that kind of checking in and turning towards your partner. Now, we can also do things like turning away, which is where we just completely ignore what the other person is saying. Maybe we keep looking at our phone or whatever we're distracted with. They change the TV channel. We don't say anything about it. That kind of thing is that turning away. And even worse than turning away is turning against. And that's where not only we're just ignoring them, but we're actually responding back with that negative context. So that, be quiet, can't you see that I'm resting? Or what's the matter now? Or that's not important, I don't have time for this. Those are all that turning against. And we want to be able to respond to these bids for connection with our partners. And by doing that, again, we're adding all that positive into that bank between the two of us so that we're just constantly building it up. Now, defensiveness, the third of these four horsemen, this is very much a self-protection method. And that is, that's really 100% what it is it's just self-protecting. And you can see defensiveness show up a lot. This can be like blaming your partner, happens often in the midst of criticism. I didn't do that. You're just imagining things. If we want to think of a classic gaslighting example, that never happened. Well, you're not a saint either. Look who's talking. You do the same thing. You always. It's not my fault. I was under a lot of stress. What about when you forgot about our anniversary? Why do I always have to be the bad guy? I'm always the one that gets blamed. I couldn't do it because my work has been insane. All of these things, these self-protection methods of that, either blowing it off or defending ourselves, or that innocent victimhood mentality that we take on. In order to deal with this, or what we're trying to move out of being defensive, is to straight up just accept responsibility. Like, if you got held over at work, or you stayed late at the kitchen table having a conversation, then own that. Like, don't put it on someone else. Like, own what's actually going on. Even if it's just part of the conflict. It's not saying you have to be the martyr and take responsibility. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast. But own your part in it. Your thing, like, the dialogue around this can look like, you're right, I don't like being late. We don't always have to leave so early. I can be more flexible. Owning your role without blaming your partner, and finding some kind of compromise. Because it goes both ways, really. It's two people. It's not just one person in a relationship. So compromise is definitely going to be your number one friend and ally in this situation. Finally, we get to stonewalling. And this is what the Gottmans refer to as, like, this is the end when it comes to, if we've reached a lot of this and we're at this point, it doesn't look great for the relationship. And this would be looked at as complete withdrawal from the conflict and from your partner. This is the ultimate shutting down and checking out. And this usually happens when you're actually feeling very flooded or emotionally overwhelmed. Think about the times coming home from work and then your partner maybe wants to have a conversation, or things are super stressed for you. You may already be kind of dysregulated, and then your partner wants to have a conversation around something or throws out a criticism or anything like that. It's going to send you over the edge. And again, we go into that protective mechanism of shutting down. We're not talking, we're disengaging, we are out. And physiologically, if you have listened to previous podcasts, you'll be familiar with a lot of the nervous system talk, but particularly the freeze nervous system response of when you're just shutting down, that disassociating that happens. But first, you're often going to go into that fight or flight first. So you're going to feel your heart rate increase, stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, start pumping through the system. The sympathetic nervous system is 100% on board. And then that can very much lead to an explosion in kind of that fight or flight, really. But then we go into that freeze state where we completely shut down, disassociate, isolate, withdrawal, doom scrolling, all those kind of things can come from that. And sometimes we have this dialogue when we feel like this same argument is coming up over and over and over again. And it's like, we're really talking about this again? Like, we're really doing this again? And even this can look like one partner actually walking away during the conversation or the conflict is that complete dismissal from the situation. The goal here to work with this is, for one, like, please do not wait until you get to this stage of stonewalling before you reach out and start getting some extra resources, whether that's couples counseling or doing, I'm definitely a fan of individuals doing counseling and doing couples counseling if that's what the focus is, because the relationship, you can't just fix the relationship if you're kind of a whole broken, dysfunctional being as yourself. Like, you need to do the work individually as well. So I'm definitely a fan of having both in play when you're reaching out for those resources, but don't wait for it to get to this point. It's ridiculous. Start seeking some help and coming up with some tactics and ideas of, like, we see this is showing up and, like, it's not going to be beneficial for us in the long run. Specifically, though, to deal with this stonewalling is you're going to want to take a break. Like, you're going to have to take a time out. And the benefit to this is not just to give yourself a minute to slow things down and to breathe, but physiologically, you're going to need to get your nervous system back into check. So if things start to escalate and amp up within a conversation or a conflict, you're going to move from your prefrontal cortex back into the oblongata, back into that primal lizard brain, where all you're going to think about is safety and survival. You're not going to be able to actually understand, comprehend, make sense of conversations, problem solve, reason, all of those things. That mechanism is going to be shut down, and it's really about, like, safety and survival at that point. So it's super important for you to take a break so you can actually re-regulate your nervous system. The other big thing here too is to avoid these thoughts of righteous indignation or innocent victimhood. So the thinking that, we're always having this conversation over and over and over. I am kind of that victim mentality, is to try to get out of that mindset and don't even go down that road. And using that line of, I don't have time for this anymore, is that checking out, is like, try to avoid any of that as much as possible. Doing something soothing, go exercise, go for a walk, go hang out with the dogs or the pets, whatever pets you have. Go listen to some music, go cook, go do something, take a break. And I'm going to talk to you exactly how to do this without completely imploding your whole relationship. But it's super important to be able to do this if you're going to have an effective kind of conversation. There are some big areas within life that have a very strong tendency to cause some of these disagreements. And so I want to kind of bring those up to you today and think about what are some of these areas perhaps in your life that you can recognize where it's kind of difficult to have conversation around these. Or when I think about having a conversation about this, it makes me feel a lot of anxiety or anger or frustration or sadness or whatever it is for one, that is, again, a great opportunity for you to go inward and look at this within yourself and see what your relationship is to these things. But then two, to work together with your partner of how to have conversations over these things so that your wants and needs feel satisfied and your partner's wants and needs feel satisfied. You both feel heard, you both feel respected, and you can come to a common goal here with these. So, the first one, probably the number one, if we picked one issue of all couples of all time, this would probably be it, and that is going to be money. And this is centered around decisions, control, spending habits, saving habits, priorities, all of those kinds of things. Money is a massive, massive topic when it comes to couples communication. And again, it's going to start with what your relationship is to money and all of that kind of thing. It goes far deep into the rabbit hole. But think about, like, money and why it can be such a problem to have that conversation. Sex, expectations, birth control. Oh, we're having a baby now. What are we doing? All of those kinds of things can be a big topic. how to treat your partner when they're upset. If you're coming from your own attachment style, whether that's anxious or avoidant or disorganized or whatever, like, are you taking care of your partner out of your attachment style and not theirs, or your love language and not their love language? But really being aware and asking, like, how can I show up for you when you're upset? Affection and love, what does that look like for each of you? The kids, talking about discipline and responsibilities and commitments and all the things. What makes the relationship work? Listening to your partner. Problems and decisions that impact both partners. Are you doing that equally? Having discussion around that. Quality time, probably a huge topic when it comes to first responder relationships, quality time. And what does that look like when you're working around a shift schedule? TV, phone, social media, alcohol and drugs, and how to ask for something to be done. These are just an example, again, of 12 kind of pretty big topics that come up within the context of that couple's communication. And so thinking about how can you go into these conversations with confidence. And I do recommend not being in the heat of the moment when you are going to talk about these things, but sometimes it can be done best. There's really like a lot of power behind walking. And so if you know, like, okay, I want to talk about this, I want to bring this up, this issue of quality time or whatever, is if you grab the dogs or grab the kids or whatever and go for a walk, it can be a lot easier to have some of these conversations that way, because your eyes are facing forward, you've got the rhythmic bilateral movement happening, so it's good for your nervous system. You can be looking around at other things that can be really helpful. And sometimes, I'm not going to say every time, but sometimes driving in the car can also be helpful, where you kind of have a little bit of that other outside things to focus on and eyes looking forward, things like that. And we'll talk about that later. The eye contact can be really, really helpful too, but sometimes in these contexts, when you're needing to have these difficult conversations, it can help take some of the pressure off that way. When I see couples come into my office, and I think one of the really common things, or individual, because this kind of definitely becomes like a family event when people are going through this kind of work that you start to do on yourself, is a lot of couples that I hear individuals say is like, I don't even know who this person is, or we've gotten so into the rhythm, like we're just kind of going through life and trying to, keep our heads above water. And I think you really have to hear and realize is your relationship is going to go through these different series of things, sometimes correlated with life events, right? If you, of course, like after moving in or getting married or getting a new job, going through an academy, or losing a job, losing a loved one, having kids moving out, kind of all these different big life transitions, is that your relationship is going to go through these different unfoldings and kind of like illusioning, if that's a word, of what things were. And you really have to realize that this person that even literally last year is not going to be the same person who's sitting next to you on the couch today or having dinner across from you at the table now. And getting really good at knowing your partner in this season of life is going to carry the relationship a very long ways. If you think about the person that you were with back when you very first started dating them, of like how much you went into like big time detail on getting to know them, asking so many questions and being curious about things, asking about all kinds of stuff. Is like we really should be doing that throughout the different seasons of our life, because we change so much as we go through this journey of life. And getting to know your partner and letting them know about you is so important, and it will keep things beyond the surface level detail. I see this a lot with people, especially, I know it's hard when the kids are in the younger age phase and there's just a lot going on, but the entire crux of the relationship becomes so centered on the kid stuff is that they forget about the them stuff and their partner too. And you can, when I ask them, like, what do you guys talk about when you sit down for dinner? And it's like, oh, so and so with this for school and sports and schedule and this thing. And it's like, you're not even, you don't have anything else outside of the context of the kids. Is like, I want you to go to dinner or go do something, have a date night, and don't talk about the kids once through the whole night. Is like you realizing you're more than just parents. You're more than just a mom. You're more than just a dad. But being curious about one another, ask about what their biggest dream is. What's your fears right now in life? Or what's your favorite childhood memory? Or what's your favorite memory of us so far? Or whatever it is. It's like, invest in that other person, get to know them again, and keep dating the other person. Is like, we forget that, just dating our partner and how much benefit that brings to us of building intimacy and friendship and that meaningful daily connection that we have throughout the busyness of life. Is that, how can I show up for you today? And your partner asking the same thing, how can I show up for you? And allowing me to respond that way and being comfortable of asking for help and letting them show up for us. The rituals of connection is getting together and doing things. Like, it doesn't have to be grand and elaborate, super crazy expensive planned out date nights. It can be so simple and easy, but it's just about spending that quality time together. One of the biggest things is date nights. And I tell couples this all the time, is like, put it on the calendar, like actually book it and get it on there, because then you'll actually show up and do it, rather than just saying, yeah, we need to like plan a date night. Is like, put it on the calendar, make it happen. Doesn't have to be super complicated. Fit it into the season of life where you are, but it's just so incredibly important. When we talk about 3 different kinds of A's, we're talking about acknowledgement, appreciation, and acceptance. The 3 of these are going to get you a long way within the context of your relationship. So for acknowledgement, be willing to agree that your partner is having the experience that they're having. They don't need to have it the way that you think they need to have it, or the way that you may be experiencing it, but just give them the space to have it their way that they're having it. And again, I'm telling you, don't try to fix it. It's not your responsibility to fix it. You're there as a supporter. You're not there as the fixer. So stop guessing at how they're feeling. Stop guessing at what they want. Just wait and listen. Just be present. It's the whole, darling, I know you're suffering and I'm here for you. Appreciation. What do you like or appreciate about your partner? You've got to like something for sure. You're with them. But those thoughtful and the frequent things, those are going to serve you in a huge way. Think about being specific and precise, like as much as you can do in that way to appreciate your partner. What you put out will definitely come back. And acceptance. This is huge. And I think this is a huge place where my relationship is in the current season of life, is accepting this courageous love. And it's just kind of accepting where each person is, and they're growing and they're transforming in their journey, and showing up with that courageous love of that, like, I see you, I'm here for you, I'm not going anywhere, like, let's get through all of this together, or do what we need to do together as a team. But it's that attitude shift of it's more than just I love you, but we have this consistent goal, this consistent mission that we're going to support each other no matter what we're going through or what we're in right now. One of the really helpful tactics that I want to share with y'all is what we call, this is helping with the the physiological side of things that we mentioned with the conflict getting to the point where we're starting to see physiological changes. This is called yellow light, red light. And the whole goal of this is, again, becoming a master of your own nervous system and being accountable for that. And like we've talked about in past episodes, the more you train with your nervous system, the more that you rewire those neural pathways, it's going to serve you in the long run, and you're going to have so much more capacity. So I teach this a lot to people when they come into my office, either with couples or individuals. But yellow light is when, and you need to, let me set this up for you. You need to talk to your partner about this before you just yell out to them yellow light, because they're not going to know what you're talking about. So if you're not doing this together in couples counseling, I do highly encourage you to talk to your person about this on the beginning. Outside of conflict, you're not allowed to do this in the midst of conflict, but talk to them before you get there so that it's a common language for both of you guys. So yellow light, if we think of a traffic light, yellow light is that stop and take a 2-minute break. So you're actually going to walk away from what's happening. We talked about the things going for a walk, get a quick workout in, cold plunge if you have one, hang out with the dogs, go read, go listen to music, go cook something like that is like step away from the environment, go do some nervous system drills, do some breathing, things like that. 2 minutes, yellow light. Come back. The key is you always come back, because what you're going to do if you don't do this correctly and you don't honor the coming back part is you are going to highly dysregulate your partner, and you're going to reinforce old patterns and old attachment styles that they're probably trying to heal or to transform out of, and you don't want to do that to them. Like, nobody wants to do that to one another. So you have to come back. You need to honor that. Now, if you come back and it's still pretty heightened, you can feel those symptoms of that increased heart rate or the breathing or whatever it is, then you need to do a red light. And a red light is a 30-minute break. And 30 minutes, they've kind of shown, is that really good window to allow things to chill out. And I highly suggest to you, like, you're not going to be perfect at this, and that's fine, but try not to allow your conscious mind, your thoughts, to take you on a total roller coaster in that 30 minutes of, oh, I'm coming back to this argument, I know exactly what I'm about to say, or blah, whatever. Don't do that. That is not the purpose of this. You're not meant to go stew for 30 minutes. Actually go do something that's going to be beneficial for you to actually come back and have the conversation. What's really powerful for us in the context of this communication side is actually speaking from the self. And when I say that, I'm talking about speaking from the authentic self. This requires a level of being vulnerable with our partner. And we have to feel safe enough to show and explain like what we want and how we're feeling. And this is something I know we're slowly turning the boat to be able to do. And I'm there with you too, because it's not just an overnight thing. I get that. But the more that you can do this, you're increasing that level of connection and intimacy with one another. And we talked a little bit about that I'm feeling, how can you show up for me type mentality, or that little breakdown on how to express what you're feeling and what to ask for. And that's really, really helpful. But the best way to build a firm connection with your partner is to allow yourself to be vulnerable with them. And it's not blaming them. It's not you being the victim or anything like that, but it's just showing them and telling them how you're actually feeling. And as a first responder, I think that this is really applicable and important, because what I hear from a lot of spouses on the other side is like, I want to feel connected to them when they get home from shift, or I want them to tell me what's going on so that I can help, so that I can do something. And the first responder doesn't know what to do with that, or feels that disconnect and that cutoff, and then that makes the other person feel even more isolated and cut off. And so really, this isn't saying like you need to share everything or everything needs to get out on the table, because I don't agree that that's always the best method either. But even just sharing something of like, I'm feeling like really burned out, or I'm feeling incredibly fatigued or frustrated or sad, or whatever it is like, just sharing that with your partner can be so empowering for them and so helpful to hear that and to see like, oh wow, like they are opening up, they are giving me something, and then they can show up for you. And if you can get used to using this pattern of language between the two of you, is it can be a really beautiful experience where both of you show up for one another. And the more that you allow yourself to speak from your authentic self, to speak from what you're actually feeling and experiencing without putting up a resistance towards it yourself, or feeling that nervousness around how's your partner going to receive it, is that you're actually going to build such a cool foundation and a cool way of being in a relationship. And your kids are going to see that too. Like, it's going to be noticeable, and it's going to do so much for you in the long run. So one thing I always throw out for people too is this 10-minute check-in. And it can be 5 minutes if 5 minutes is what you've got. But it's a powerful way to typically do this in the morning. Or you can do it the night before too, kind of whatever works best within the dynamics of your life. But the check-in is meant to be that time where you get to sit down and talk with your partner about what do you need from me? Like how can I show up for you, essentially? And again, it gives this cool opportunity for vulnerability and to kind of reflect on what our needs are by making it clear about what we actually do need. And it's cool that if we put it out there, right, we give our partners that opportunity to respond back to us. And I would say like 9 times out of 10, there's always that one time maybe, but most of the time our partners really do care about us, and they really do love us, and they really do want to show up for us. But we just have to be willing to ask for what we need and come from the right place in doing that. So I am going to put a link in the show notes below on a cool little worksheet that I put together that's called 31 Ways of Connection. And you can use it for whatever month, but there are 31 things on there. What it is going to be these small intentional ways of getting to know your partner in this season of life that you're in. So it'll be very, very simple, from ask them what your partner's favorite hobby is, or recreate your first date, or have coffee or tea with your partner. Very simple things. It's not going to cause a lot of like, oh, we got to put this together in our schedule. But it's just some creative ways of things to think outside the box to get you out of that normal rhythm of life that we get into, that kind of craziness, especially as school is back in and like everything switches back into that school mentality anyways. But I will put this in the show notes for you. It will be something that you can access and use, and I hope that you do. And let me know how it goes. I would love your feedback to hear about how some of these things went for you, or if you have any questions about any of this stuff. We are 100% here for you. We are so glad that you joined in with us today. We also really love your likes and shares and reviews, all of that kind of stuff means a lot to us. It helps us in tremendous ways. So if you have the time, a like is incredible, greatly appreciated. But I hope that you have a great week, whatever it looks like for you. And I'm excited for you to start implementing some different changes into the way that you communicate with your special person. Go out there, be awesome, and I look forward to talking with you again very soon.